In the wake of Aussie local car manufacturing drying up, the tie-up between Nissan and Premcar has been a modern-day success story. Shortly after converting its 10,000th model, Nissan and Premcar have introduced a new MY24 model update to the Nissan Patrol Warrior, and it addresses one of this car's predecessor's biggest shortfalls. Let's talk all about it. You can't pick it on the outside because there are no external or mechanical changes to the Nissan Patrol Warrior for 2024. What has changed is on the inside, and the changes made address arguably one of the biggest shortfalls of the pre-update Nissan Patrol. But that is no bad thing, because we have been fundamentally impressed by not only the Nissan Patrol itself, but the introductions Premcar has made to the model make it so much more appealing to an Australian audience. The changes I want to hone in on revolve around the model's infotainment system. It's now updated to a 10.1-inch unit in place of the old 8-inch display. It includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a high-definition reversing camera, satellite navigation, and digital radio. One cool aspect is the fact that the car comes with HEMA 4x4 mapping, though it only includes a stingy 1-month subscription. Customers will have to pay their own way afterwards. In any case, it is a significant update for the 14-year-old model, but it arrives just before an all-new replacement, expected to be unveiled within the next 12 months. For the time being, this car costs $104,160 before on-road costs. Externally, there are no changes to the MY 2024 Patrol Warrior, but as you can see, that is no bad thing. The car is characterised by its big red bash plate underneath there. It also gets a set of black fender flares, hiding a set of unique 18-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Yokohama Geolandar all-terrain tyres, and of course, down the side you've got the requisite decal kit. I reckon it looks the part, but there is so much going on under the skin of this car too. The changes Premcar has made to the Warrior include, but are not limited to, specially developed front and rear springs with a 50mm total lift, enhanced approach and departure angles, a re-engineered version of Nissan's hydraulic body motion control system, 2 off-road recovery points, a 48kg increase in payload, and unique interior trim. You can see inside the cabin, Premcar has removed the old wood grain and replaced it with nice Alcantara accents. Even for that simple change alone, it helps the interior feel far more modern than it actually is. Otherwise, there are Warrior branded bits and pieces plus piano black trim elements surrounding the center console. However, arguably the coolest change Premcar has made is to install the bimodal exhaust system. It activates based on throttle position, engine speed, and vehicle speed, but once its parameters are satisfied, it sounds absolutely incredible and really lets the Patrol's 5.6-litre naturally aspirated V8 breathe. All of these changes take Premcar roughly 24 hours to turn around, which is particularly impressive given the factory's modest physical footprint. Premcar continues to use suppliers it did use in its former life manufacturing Ford performance vehicles, so it's a good news story that local jobs are still being supported by independent outfits like Premcar. Inside the cabin, the look and feel of this Patrol Warrior is far nicer than you do get in a regular Nissan Patrol, which is frankly beyond its time in 2024. But the real change is to do with this infotainment unit. Now, it's true that it isn't the best integrated solution, particularly when cars in the Middle East get a nice Nissan developed unit, but there is no doubt the functionality of this system is far better than its predecessor. It's quick to respond to touch inputs. I've used the navigation, which is really handy, and it also has a nice high definition camera quality, which is particularly handy when you are off-roading. Now, my main gripe with the system is the fact that it is mounted a little bit too low in the dash, and that isn't really handy when you are driving. And it does feel like a little bit of a haphazard slap-on solution to a problem that this car has had for a long time. Otherwise, the cabin is hugely spacious in these seats, which are couch-like in their comfort, and everything feels well built. Other updates for 2024 include this car having a center console cooler box, a wireless smartphone charger down here on the center console, and also a digital rear-view mirror. Alright, well, while we're off the beaten track, I want to point out the things that Premcar has done to make this Nissan Patrol that much more capable when it comes to off-road use. Now, Premcar's whole sort of mantra about this Warrior build is the fact that it wants to add ability to this car, not sort of shift the dynamic and take away from what this car can do on-road as well. And in terms of how this car straddles both disciplines, Premcar has done a really good job, because off-road like we are at the moment, this car will sort of eat up little imperfections. You're not getting that much corrugations and ride discomfort coming inside the cabin. And when you do balance that with what this car can do on-road, it is a really nicely sort of balanced ride and comfort sensation, because Premcar has put effort into especially developing springs both at the front and at the rear, but it's the rear ones that are most impressive because they are triple rate rear springs, and you don't really get that same sort of bouncing on the rear axle that you do sort of experience in a Nissan Patrol like typically. In terms of steering, this is a light system and it sort of belies this car's size. I'm not sure if I totally love it, and when you are driving it off-road, particularly over sort of corrugations that are sustained, it does sort of have a bit of a rack rattle, which isn't the nicest sensation when you are driving off-road, but overall it is a good system, and it is easy to maneuver this big car because this is a big car and it is tricky to maneuver in town. As we've discussed, Premcar and Nissan haven't changed this car's underpinnings, so you still do have that 5.6 litre naturally aspirated V8 engine, which is a bloody hoot in this car. It is really, really characterful, and you can sort of just hear it rumble away there. It is really nice to have that kind of power in a car of this size, and it's something quite novel these days. You don't usually get a V8 powered large SUV, so I guess get it while you can. One of my favourite sensations of the Patrol Warrior is that bimodal exhaust system. Well, arguably everybody's favourite aspect is that. And you can really hear it rumble away down there, and it sounds really, really good. Now, Premcar has said that exhaust, the bimodal system, it will open up depending on engine speed, vehicle speed, and also throttle position. But basically, when you put your foot in it, you do get that extra sound. And it sounds fantastic. Some cool things that Premcar has done with regard to that bimodal exhaust system is the fact that when you do put it in manual mode, that exhaust is always open, and it'll also rev match blip shift on the downshift. So you can hear it there. While it's not the quickest shifting transmission, this car is really impressive in what it can do sound-wise. So yeah, like I said, I reckon get it while it lasts, because the days of this 5.6 litre V8 are numbered. On the downside, this car is not the most frugal. Now, we've been doing about 16 to 17 litres per 100 kilometres, which is pretty shameful for a car in 2024, but given what this car can do and the size of its engine, you sort of take that on board when you do purchase something like the Nissan Patrol Warrior. But yes, you will be at the petrol station every second day, it feels like. It might not be the most easy thing to handle around town because this car is big and its steering is slow and not particularly accurate, but I am comfortable out here touring in wider Victoria, and this car is largely where it will spend most of its time, out in rural Victoria, towing things and also going off-road where necessary. There is a wide breadth of ability that this car offers that is really entertaining when matched with that V8 exhaust noise as well. The car isn't particularly bullied about by little bumps and undulations in the road. It's sort of just absorbed without too much intrusion inside the cabin. And as well, one thing I do want to call out is the fact that there's little noise coming inside this cabin because it is really well insulated and refined. So good job to Nissan in that regard. One thing we don't have in this car, which you might expect considering something with a 5.6 litre V8 putting out 298 kilowatts, is driving modes. This car is largely focused on what it can do off-road. And you do have a few modes down here on the center console, but they are focused about what this car can do off-road. You have sand, snow, on-road and rock modes, and while they don't change what this car will sound like or what its steering response feels like, it will change things like gear positioning and when it changes up gear or down a gear. And it also changes the hydraulic body motion control system, which does make things a little bit easier when you are off-road. So while this car is largely the same compared to what we've experienced at the model's launch less than a year ago, the main changes for the 2024 model year update relate to this car's infotainment system. And unfortunately, while we have described a better functionality and more capability from that 10.1-inch system, it is positioned just that little bit too low that you don't have sort of at-a-glance visibility when you are driving this on the road. And it could be positioned that little bit higher. It's not the greatest integration, but you do have that trade-off in extra ability as well. So, is a modestly updated 2024 Nissan Patrol Warrior better than the car it replaces? In one way, yes. The technology is finally at a 2024 standard, but it's the integration which leaves a little to be desired. I'd argue that you could have a 2023 car and not be too upset about this update. But the fact remains, this car is really impressive when it comes to on and off-road use, and particularly at its price point. If you've liked this review of the 2024 Nissan Patrol Warrior, or you've learned something interesting about it, be sure to give us a like on YouTube and stay subscribed to get all of our future content. As well, you can read the review on Drive.com.au.